Hey, we're back down at Dad's shop today. Isn't that exciting? We got the orange International back out here. We're gonna talk about that a little bit later, but that's not why I'm down here. I'm down here so we can work on Sweet Pea again. So we're gonna head into the shop right now. We're gonna get to work. We need to finish up the brakes on this truck. Dad's already got a jump start on me. He's in here working on the valve covers. The valve covers are leaking like a sieve, dumping oil everywhere. So he's already in process on that. I'm gonna jump in and start running some hard lines for the rear brakes for the back of this truck. We need to run the hard lines. We've got to put in the new brake drum hardware back here, put on new shoes, new springs, all that stuff, change out the wheel cylinders. We discovered, or I think what happened the last time I was trying to bleed this system and I couldn't bleed it, is we have a proportioning valve issue. I think when the fronts blew out, it closed off the front circuit. We've got to readjust the brake proportioning valve. If that's the case, I'll show you guys that as well. So Dad's already in here. Say hi, Dad.
Hi, Dad.
He's in here working on the valve covers. And we thought that'd be a pretty straightforward, easy job, but he had to remove the power steering pump bracket, which required removing some of the coolant piping. So we've now drained the engine of antifreeze. Thankfully, we got most of that caught down there. It's just been a little more difficult than originally anticipated, right? But we'll get through it. He's gonna work on it and get these valve covers replaced out while I start working on the brakes. All right, so here's our list for today. So I'm starting with the hard lines here. Then we're gonna do the brake shoes and the wheel cylinders in the back, deal with our proportioning valve. Dad's working on valve covers. We need to do an oil change. We haven't done an oil change in this thing since we dug it out of the weeds. I know at one point the fuel pump was just dumping fuel down the throat of this thing. So we're gonna have a little bit of gas in the oil. We need to possibly do a front brake adjustment. They're over tight right now. And at the end of the day here, we're gonna bleed the brakes and hopefully be able to roll this thing out of the shop. So I need to disconnect the rear brake lines. And if you look down in here, you can see the proportioning valve right here. This is our rear brake line right here. So I need to go ahead and heat that up, add some lubricant to it and break this line loose. A little heat, a little juice, it came right on out. You can see here, this is the cause of the issue here. We've got rusted through lines that popped on us. So I'm gonna go ahead, I started laying out some other brake line down there, some 3/16 copper nickel brake line. I kept this in pretty close to the same shape that it was coming out of the truck. So we're gonna just try and match this as closely as we can. Leave it a little bit long, bend it up, cut it apart, and then slide it back into the truck. So that's what I'm gonna do up next here. I've got my brake line all bent up and now it's time to flare the ends here. So I'm gonna walk through, I think I've featured this before, but this is a Tool Guy Republic brake flaring tool. It goes in the vise, not super portable, so it's a little tough when you're doing a really long line, but we're gonna make it work today and I'll show you how it works. So the first thing is always make sure that you put your tube nut on before you flare your line. Otherwise you're gonna end up having to cut the line off, put a tube nut on and reflare it. It comes with these dies. It'll do bubble flares and the DIN flares, the flat DIN flares. We're doing bubble flares here, so we're gonna place the first die flat down into the holder there, set the tube down in there, and we want it extending past the die. And then you need to make sure you directionally have the second die in the right direction. So you can see here on the ends the two different types of flares there. So if you put it the wrong side down, it should index with these nubs on the dies, but if you did put it in the wrong way, you're gonna have troubles. So just make sure you put that down in the right way. Once we've got that down in there, we're just gonna loosely flip this over. We're not tightening this down yet, and we're setting this to OP.0, which is the zero process. You're gonna pull your lever and that puts the tube flush with the die, and then we're gonna tighten the die down. Crank the die down tight. We're gonna turn this is 3/16 lines. We're gonna go OP1 3/16, so that's operation 1. Pull the lever as far back as it goes. Switch this to OP2 for 3/16, which is the orange section here. So there's a 5/16, 3/8, there's a quarter 3/16. We just make sure we're on the right one. OP2 for the 3/16. Do the same thing, pull that tight. And you're gonna release your die, pull this, pull off your die, and you got a perfect flare on there. We're gonna repeat this on the other side, and then we're gonna get this line put in the truck. So you can see we got our line run all the way to the back here. We ran it from the proportioning valve all the way to the back. And now I've got to deal with this rubber line. So I bought a universal kit here just from Speedway. It's just a generic rubber line here. But what I need to do is get this old brake hose out of here so we can install the new one into this bracket up here. Woof. Hose blew off. Yeah, I'm not gonna bother with this. I'm just gonna cut it off. All right, so that's really, that hose is really jacked up and seized in there. The retaining nut is all rounded off from someone previously trying to remove it. So I'm just going to straighten this bracket out a little bit. And I'm gonna cut directly above this, and then we're going to drill a new hole in here for the hose. Got that hole drilled out. Now I can slide this rubber line through, and there's just a C-clip that goes on the back side of this. There we go. Oh, dude, don't even worry about it. All right, you should be able to see now what that kind of looks like. It just slides behind this plate. The C-clip goes in the front side here. Now I've got the brake line hooked up. Now I don't have any of the brake lines tightened down or anything, but we're gonna work around to the back side of the truck here. The bolt that runs through this is a similar style on this hose. I'm gonna pull that bolt out and mount up this hose so then we can run our hard lines from this distribution block out to each drum. All right, this is the other half of that bracket that the brake hose in the back was bolted to. Now, once I started trying to break this loose, the actual bracket welded to the diff just split right off. It's so rusty. So I need to make myself a new little bracket to mount our new hose to. So I've just got a piece of flat stock here. I didn't quite have the width that I wanted, so I'm gonna split this in two, cut it, we're gonna bend it up, drill a hole in the end of it for the new brake hose, and then I'll get this welded on the diff, and then we'll be able to bolt the hose in, and then we can start running the lines, the hard lines from the hose out to the brake drums. All right, got this little bracket whipped up for the brake hose. I'm gonna take you down underneath the truck and show you how we're gonna make that work. We're just gonna have to weld this onto the differential. Got my buddy Shea here helping. He's working on the rear brakes here for me. I think he's finding what I found out on the front, which is that rusty old drum brakes are real fun to work on, and it's usually one step forward and two steps back, but Thankfully, I think I got him all the right parts this time. So hopefully we won't have any issues there. But yep, so he's gonna work on that. I'm gonna crawl underneath this truck. We're gonna take a look at how we're gonna mount this brake hose up. All right, so here's the bracket. Like I said, I just cut up. I drilled one side of this out to accept a 3/8 bolt, and then I just drilled another 3/8 hole. Because ultimately what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna plug weld this right there, right to where the old bracket was. This is where that old bracket broke off. So I'm gonna take this right here. We're gonna weld that in there on the bracket, or on the rear end, on the rear differential. And then this hose right here, we're gonna loop up, and it's gonna bolt through to this bracket here. So I'm gonna go ahead, get the welder out, get this buzzed in. We'll get some hardware for this. So you can see I got my little bracket tacked in here, and I've already got the hose bolted up. The next step here is going to be to bend some lines up. Now Shea's got the wheel cylinder installed on this side already, so I'm probably just going to cut a little piece of wire and form it into the shape I need, and then use that piece of wire to bend up the line. That way I'm not getting in his way, and then I can he can keep doing what he's doing, and I can make hard lines. I'll start on this side, and then I'll work my way over to the other. All right, so I just got a little piece of baling wire here, and I'm just going to push this into our plug where the new line is going to go. It's going to sit in there like that. I'm just going to kind of gauge about where this needs to be. I'm just going to clip this, and then I'll know what size to cut my hard line to, and I can go ahead and make that line up off of the truck. All right, straighten out my line here. Got my line straightener. I'm just gonna run this through here a couple times. Line nice and straight. Sounds like Shea's having a good time with the drum brakes back there. I'll give myself just a little bit of extra, just in case here. I'm going to jump up here to our proportioning valve, and I believe what happened the first time we worked on this truck in the shop was we blew out the front brake line on the passenger side, and I believe what that did was it closed off the fluid path for the front brakes because we're getting a lot of line pressure in the back, and that's what actually blew out the back lines. So now we're not getting any line pressure in the front, so I think the proportioning valve safety mechanism has been activated, and I just need to recenter the pin that's in that proportioning valve. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this apart, see if I can identify what the issue is. And then if I can, I'll reset the pin in this proportioning valve, and we'll see if once we have the back line hooked up, if we'll be able to actually bleed the front and back brakes. I'm gonna pop off this brake switch. I need to pop that off there. We'll see. Okay, I think it went. All right, I'm taking out the brake sensor out of the proportioning valve here. Give me just 1 second. I'm gonna do this and then we'll go. Yep. Yes, I'm gonna interview the proportioning valve. Okay, I've got the proportioning valve out. I've got it disassembled. I'm gonna show you guys the components and how this thing essentially works. If you look at the proportioning valve here, this top centerpiece is where the brake pressure switch goes. And that's what this is. You'll see there's a little plunger on the end of this. And it's really just a contact switch is all this is. So happens to be when the switch is depressed, the contact is open, and then when it's released, it's closed. So what happens when it's open, the brake light is off, the brake dummy switch in the dash is off, so you don't have an error light on. When you blow out a line, I'll show you how this happens, but the plunger is released. That makes contact with the switch in here, and that sends a signal to the dash to light up the dummy switch on the dash and tell you, hey, you got a brake problem. So how does this all work? Essentially, these are the internal components here for this type of proportioning valve. There's two plungers, one that goes in on each side, okay? So if we look down the center, you can see a hole in the center where the plunger of that switch goes into. And then we've got our bores on either side of that. I'm gonna go ahead and slide in one of these plungers until you can see just the end flange down in the hole. And you only want it to go halfway through the hole. So I'll show you, I pushed it too far. If you look down in that hole, you can see it's centered in the hole right now. Where I actually want it is about halfway. If you can see that, let me get a light on this real quick. All right, so now you can see down in there, you can see the left half of the hole is covered with that end of the plunger, the right half is not. So we're gonna take this other piece, same thing. It's the exact same type of plunger. It's gonna go in on the right side and it's gonna meet in the center. So I'm gonna get that into the bore here. And then what I'm using is the end of a drill bit here. And we push that in. Now there's an O-ring in there that holds that. Okay, there we go, it went. There's an O-ring that closes that bore off. Okay, if you look down there now, see if I can get the light right, get it to focus here. You should be able to see, it might be difficult to see, but what you should be able to see is the split between the two plungers right in the center down there, okay? Now, the way this works is you got this spring and flange on either side. Those are gonna go in next, and they're gonna put equal pressure on those two plungers from each side, okay? And as long as you have equal pressure on both sides here, those plungers are gonna stay centered in this flange. This brake plunger is gonna stay depressed, you won't have a light on, and all is well. Now, if we look in to the end of this proportioning valve, you can see a hole down in the bottom of the proportioning valve here. And that is the pass-through that is gonna allow fluid to come from your master cylinder down into your brake lines. What happens is, when the system's full of fluid, it's bled, there's no air in the lines, you've got pressure on either side of those plungers because you've got your brake fluid in here. If you were to blow out a line, let's say you blow out a front line, this is the front, this is the back here. Let's say you blow out a front line, you rapidly lose pressure, and the pressure from your rear brake system is going to shove those plungers, both of them, over. And if you notice, there was a notch in that plunger that goes on in the side. The pressure switch then falls down into that notch, and that's what turns on the brake light. But effectively, the bigger deal is that when this shoves over, that plunger now plugs the hole in the bottom of the proportioning valve here, and that circuit is closed. So that is exactly the condition that I found this in. The plungers were pushed over this way. Essentially, no fluid was being allowed to go from the master cylinder down to my front brakes. So I've alleviated that problem now. Everything's centered back up here. We're gonna reassemble the proportioning valve, put it back in, and then we should be able, once we get all the brake lines connected and Shea gets done with the rear drum brakes, we should be able to bleed the system and restore the brakes on this truck. All right, we're taking a quick break from the brake work in there. It's actually coming along really well. We're just about ready to bleed the brakes out in the truck, but I want to talk about the 75 International pickup. The last time you guys saw this truck, Dad and I had taken it for a test drive. The brakes were locking up on it. We blew a power steering line, but we got it up and running, and we just really had to get down to doing the brake work and a few other things. So since that time, I just have not had the time to work on this truck, and Dad's been really excited about using it this spring and summer. So he had one of our mechanic friends work on it, and he did a ton of work for him. I went ahead and collected all the brake parts and everything, and he went and installed them. It's got brand new calipers and rotors on the front. There's a conversion kit we use for that because the rotors for this 3/4 ton truck are unobtainium. You cannot get them, and if you can, they are like over 500 bucks a piece. This truck is now running off both of the original fuel cells. You'll see we've got the boat tank in the back, but that's all disconnected. That's not hooked up anymore. So we're off of that. He went through and tuned on the carburetor and fixed some transmission leaks, fixed the power steering leaks, put new power steering lines, and just did a ton of work for Dad. And this thing is up and running now, and it's awesome. It drives great. So we're gonna take it for a quick little cruise here. We gotta run over to my nephews, David, who you've seen on this channel before. We're gonna pick up some brake fluid from him so we can finish bleeding the brakes on our truck. We're gonna take this thing for a little cruise, and I'm hoping maybe, just maybe, by the end of the day, we'll be able to pull out the two trucks, put them side by side, and snap a few pics before it gets too dark. Still smells like rat pee, unfortunately.
Just a little.
It's not too bad. I was just talking up how good it's running. There it goes. So I think our last trip, we made it to about right there before the brakes locked up on us.
About right. Turns smooth and everything.
Yeah.
Man.
We're back. Dad's got the valve covers on, got them painted up all nice and red. They're looking real good. The lines are all tightened down. Let's see, power steering's back on.
Not quite tight.
Not quite, okay. We're pretty much ready to bleed brakes and then see if we can get this thing rolling. So we're gonna dump some fluid in this thing, get the back drums on, get the drums adjusted, and see if we can bleed out these brakes. Sweet Pea on the ground. First time in months So let me recap for you guys, because we didn't film some stuff, but we ran into some issues. We did get the brakes bled, with one caveat. Our lovely parts dealers boned us on a wheel cylinder in the back. Brand new wheel cylinder, started pumping up the brakes, and it's bleeding fluid out of the seals of a brand new wheel cylinder. So that's problem number one. What we ended up doing was we just disconnected that line. I made just a small little crimped line and put it at the T back there just to get us through today. To steal the words of the esteemed Puddin's Fab Shop, if 3 don't stop it, 4 never would have. So we're gonna send it with 3 here. We're actually not gonna go too far. We're just going to back it out of the garage here, put it down, put it out on the street, and do a little test to see how the brakes are holding up. I'll pop the hood here for you guys, give you a look. We got the underside of the hood here all cleaned up too. Dad got the valve covers painted up, International red there. It looks kind of nice with the painted up. Air cleaner as well. Obviously there's a lot more work we still need to do under here, but we got our leak stopped there. We still have a boatload of oil to burn off, so that's going to be burning off for a while. And now that I'm thinking about it, we had one other parts issue, guys. So I had 2 major issues with brand new parts. We were having a heck of a time getting the front brakes bled down, and ultimately what we found out was I backed all the way up, right? So I did I bled the master cylinder right on the truck here, and we were getting pressure. I was seeing fluid get pumped through, so I know it was pumping fluid. I checked the proportioning valve. We did that earlier, I showed you. But what I ended up doing was pulling the lines off the exit of the proportioning valve, put my finger over it, had Dad pump the brake pedal up to make sure we were getting fluid out. We were generating pressure through there. No matter what I did, I could not get fluid down to the driver's side wheel cylinder. And it was bugging me to death. So what I ended up doing, I pulled the bleeder all the way off, told Dad to pump it up. I just kept my finger over the hole and I could feel pressure generating. So, okay, we got it to where we got fluid to the wheel cylinder, put the bleeder back in, bled it 2 times, got some air, didn't really get any fluid, and then stopped getting fluid altogether, and air. Like, what the heck is going on? So I pulled the bleeder off again. It had a giant chunk of rubber jammed down inside of the bleeder. Brand new bleeder, brand new lines, brand new everything. Why, I don't know. I don't know what happened there. I don't know what the deal was. You can hear Dad in the background with the orange truck. It sounds like he's having some trouble getting it to run quite right here. It was running just fine a second ago, but anyways, plugged bleeder here, bad wheel cylinder in the back, bad brand new wheel cylinder in the back. So we're limping on 3 brakes here, but we've got it all back together. We've got it running. We changed the oil. We filled the top antifreeze back up. So we're gonna put this thing out on the road, just give it a little bit of a test drive here and see what happens. And we're gonna get some glamour shots outside and see where it goes from there. All right, we just took Sweet Pea for a spin around the block. There's work to be done still, but listen to these 2 kittens purr. Put a lot of work into these 2 trucks to finally at least get them somewhat back on the road here. Man, how good does this orange truck look? Looks awesome, right? I can't wait. We're gonna be doing something different with the wheels and tires. We're gonna do a whole exterior makeover on this truck, buff it out, fix some of the paint issues, some of the dent issues, different wheels and tires. That's gonna come later this summer. I'm really excited for that because this truck's gonna completely change its appearance. Sweet Pea, she's still hurting. We'll get there, but she's still hurting. Brake situation's not great. Front drums are shot. We knew that, I knew that, but now we can at least move the truck under its own power with some brakes. Gosh dang. These are 2 really cool pickup trucks. I love it. All right, so I got to have a ton of fun today with my dad, one of my best friends, Shea. We got to work on old Sweet Pea here. We got her back on the ground and on the road. And this is just the beginning for this truck. It's got a long ways to go to get where I want it to be. And there's a lot of modification ahead for it. On the other hand, this guy is very close to being Dad's summer driver. So we had a lot of fun playing with these two trucks today. And I hope you guys enjoyed the journey that we've been on with this truck. As many frustrations as we've had already, just with the brake system, with parts, with everything. It really is part of the motto of this channel. You just have to stick with it, grind it out, and keep building, guys. If you don't work on your projects, they will not work on themselves. Get out in the garage, get building, and I'll see you on the next episode of Cody Builds.